What's up guys, Jennifer here, welcome back to We Have Little Faith. I have a logo now. I'm gonna make a better one. Today we're gonna be taking a look at my old cringy religious Facebook posts. And there are some really cringy ones. I joined Facebook in 2009, I was 16 years old, I'm 26 now. I've been active on Facebook for about 9 of those 10 years. There was a time in like 2015 where I didn't post at all. So I basically went through my entire 10-year history on Facebook. And most of the religious ones were between like 2009 and early 2013. So we're going to be scrolling through and have a look at some of the really cringy shit I said when I was a teenager. The stuff from when I was like 18 to 20 is like the worst. So we're going to jump into it. We're going to see some of the dumbest shit I said. This one's from November of 2009. Professionals built the Titanic. Amateurs built the Ark. And I just listed it as a quote from a movie. Let me tell you about that movie. There was a series of 4 movies about the end times. There was Apocalypse, Revelation, Tribulation, and Judgment. I think this quote was from Revelation. And it's this scene where this atheist computer expert is talking to his Christian sister, and she's concerned if he's going to be able to hack into this thing that they need him to hack into, and he says, "Oh, don't worry about it, I'm a professional." And she says this quote to him: "Professionals built the Titanic, amateurs built the Ark." And I thought that was so funny when I was a kid. I thought that was such a great zinger. I was like, ha, yeah, take that. I watched these movies when I was like 11, and I thought they were just the shit. They were about, the first movie, the rapture happens, and then this group of people gets saved after the rapture, so they have to endure the tribulation on the run from the evil government, and they're the little band of good guy Christians. And it was just, it was so cringy. I want to get my hands on these movies and actually do reviews of all 4 of them on this channel at some point in the future, because they're pretty cringy, and I haven't actually seen them since I was a kid, and they're probably even worse than I remember. This one is also from November of 2009. So you guys probably remember the big end times prediction back in 2012. Everybody thought the world was going to end in December of 2012 because that's when the Mayan calendar ended, which was bullshit because it's a rock. It was going to end somewhere because they ran out of space. But anyway, everybody thought the world was going to end in 2012, and I had this to say about it. All this talk about 2012 has got me thinking, and let me just say, don't live like the world's gonna end in 2012. Live like the world's gonna end tomorrow. Don't put off anything you wouldn't want left undone. Like Rascal Flatts says, love who you love with all that you have. Don't waste the time that flies so fast. Love who you love, say that you do. Hold on as tight as they'll let you. You knew I was on some shit when I was quoting Rascal Flatts. That one didn't explicitly mention God, but I'm including it in these reactions because the rapture was implied in what I was saying. The whole live as if the world's gonna end tomorrow, that's how they taught us to think about our futures. Live as if the rapture might happen tomorrow, basically. I mean, we didn't go as extreme into that as, say, Jehovah's Witnesses or something. They didn't really discourage higher education in the Baptist church that much. They didn't discourage going out and getting a decent career and all that because Armageddon could happen at any minute. It wasn't quite that extreme, but they definitely had us conditioned to always be aware in the back of our minds that Jesus could come back at any moment. This one is from February of 2010. The only thing more powerful than an answered prayer is an unanswered prayer. This is the kind of mental gymnastics that Christians will put themselves through to convince themselves that God is up there and listening to their prayers and is always involved in their lives, even if they can't feel it. If God answers your prayer, then there you go. That's proof that He's real. He was listening. He did what you asked Him for. Why are you still so ungrateful, you terrible person? If He doesn't answer your prayer, well then that's still proof that He's up there and watching out for you, because God knows what you need better than you do. Literally, this kind of mental gymnastics every goddamn day when you're a Christian. This one's from May of 2010. Proverbs 26, verse 27, the Wile E. Coyote verse. That verse, by the way, is Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. You know what? That's actually pretty funny. That's a pretty good description of Wile E. Coyote. Oh my god, this one is so cringy. Okay, so I had the idea for this, and my dad is a graphics designer, so I asked him to put it together in Photoshop. This is a classic example of Christians co-opting something from pop culture and trying to turn it into something related to God or Jesus or the Bible. There were a ton of like t-shirts like this, especially in like the 90s and early 2000s. There was the Coca-Cola logo that said Jesus Christ. There was the Reese's logo that said Jesus. There was the Subway logo, and they changed it to His Way. Seth Andrews did a whole video about how Christians basically steal all of their ideas from the secular world, and this is a perfect example of that. And I'll link to that video down in the description below. This one's from September 8th, 2010. The Soloist. Good movie, bad language. I will never understand why filmmakers feel the need to ruin a good story with such foul language. I hate Hollywood. This was just me repeating the shit that I heard from my parents. They were so like picky about the movies that we watched. If it had any bad language in it, it was basically tarnished in their eyes, even if it was just a couple of milder swear words. Whenever we would watch one of the Star Trek movies, I think it was Star Trek 2 or 3, whichever one it was where Kirk's son was killed, the part where he yells, "Those Klingon bastards killed my son." Every time we watched that movie, my dad would like sit there with his hand hovering over the mute button, and he would just mute it right before Kirk said bastard. And it's like, it's not like we don't know what he's saying. It's not like we haven't seen this movie before, but that was just how they were about movies, and so I kind of, mimicked that and kind of took that same approach to movies I watched for a long time. I actually really want to watch The Soloist again, just so I can appreciate it for the masterpiece that it is without having to get into this whole language purity thing. Here's another good one. This is from October of 2010. Forget Bella Swan, I want to be Pepper Potts or Irene Adler. This was just the good Christian girl way of saying that I wanted to fuck Robert Downey Jr. This one's from October of 2010. Judgment House at FBC Houghton went really well tonight. If you're interested in coming on Wednesday, Saturday, or Sunday, let me know and I'll give you the details. It's from 6 to 8 p.m. on each of those nights. It is absolutely life-changing. Okay, Judgment House, if you're not familiar with that, is a walkthrough version of a play that churches used to put on during the month of October as part of their alternative to Halloween celebrations. They also did the Fall Festival, which was for kids, where you could dress up in costumes, but not scary costumes, and walk around to the different booths and play games and get candy. It was a lot of fun. I will say I have a lot of good memories from the Fall Festival. But the other thing that churches would do during the month of October was this drama called Heaven's Gates, Hell's Flames. It was basically about people dying, and some of them were Christians, and so they got to go to heaven, and others had spent their whole lives denying God and spitting in his face, and so they had to go to hell. Judgment House was a variation of that play, where instead of sitting in an auditorium and watching the whole thing on a stage, you would walk through groups of people, like 10 or so people at a time, would be led through to different rooms where different scenes of this drama were being staged, and it made it kind of come alive more. It made it a little bit more real, where you're like actually a part of it when you're walking through instead of just sitting in a chair watching a play. I walked through it once because you could go through it for free if you were, they sold tickets, but you could go through it for free if you were one of the volunteers that was helping out with the event. They would always schedule a time slot for you to take a break where you could actually walk through the event if you wanted to. So I went through it once, and it was your basic cliche story of the good Christian and the horrible worldly person, and they both die and have to face their eternity. This one's from April of 2011. It was a quote from my friend Jake, who I knew from college. We had been talking about like a TV show or something that I was obsessed with, and he said, better to be obsessed with something than to be possessed by it. And I thought, wow, that's so profound. That's a really deep, profound statement coming from a true man of God like Jake. And I was just looking back over it the other day, and I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? Here's another one from July of 2011. I think this was a week that I was at a youth camp. And I think this was one of the guest speakers who said this. God's not trying to get back at you, he's trying to get you back to himself. That's another mindset that's really prevalent in evangelical culture, is this idea that if you've drifted away from God and bad things start happening to you, then that's God trying to get your attention and trying to remind you that you can't do life on your own without him. And that's just really toxic. That's a really toxic mindset, because you know what? Bad stuff and good stuff happens to people whether or not they believe in God. And that was actually one of the things that I started to notice a few years before I really fully deconverted. I started to notice that it didn't really seem to matter how much or how little I prayed or stayed in the Word. Good and bad things kind of seemed to happen at the same rate, whether I was faithfully reading my Bible and praying every day, or if I just kind of let it slide and didn't think about it. It felt like good and bad things were kind of just happening randomly. And it was one of the first things that kind of worked its way into the back of my mind and started tickling at my common sense and telling me, hey, this might be bullshit. Here's one from the end of July 2011, shortly after we had gotten back from this camp. Some people pray for passion, but I don't want passion. It's a feeling, and like other feelings, it can deceive or be deceived. I pray that God will give me a willing heart. Once that happens, then passion, the right kind of passion, will follow. There's this really toxic mindset in the church that you can't trust your feelings because feelings can deceive you, and the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? That's Jeremiah 17:9. I've had that Bible verse memorized since I was in 2nd grade, okay? So that's how early they begin teaching this shit. You can't trust your feelings, you have to rely on God and what the Bible says and what your pastor tells you the Bible says, because your own interpretation could be wrong because your feelings could be deceiving you. It's all just a bunch of redundancies built in to keep you in line and keep you believing what they want you to believe. Because if you start relying too much on your feelings, then your sense of empathy is going to kick in at some point, and you're going to realize that the church is responsible for causing a lot of people a lot of pain. Oh man, this one's really bad. This is also from August of 2011. This is 18-year-old Jennifer having no fucking idea what an agnostic actually was. So here's what I said. I think agnostics are worse than atheists in some way. I mean, think about it. Atheists mock what they don't believe. Agnostics believe in something and mock it anyway. Which is worse? My understanding at the time of an agnostic was someone who believed in God but chose not to follow him. I now understand that's not the true definition of agnostic. An agnostic is a person who says, basically, I don't know if there's a God, but I'm going to live as if there isn't one because I don't see any reason to believe in God. To be fair, both of the people who commented on this were Christians correcting me on my wrong definition of agnostic, so I do find that interesting. This one is also from August of 2011. This is right at the beginning of the fall semester. Colossians 3:23 is going to be my focus verse this school year. That verse, by the way, was, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for men, and I am really pissed off that I still have that verse memorized. This one's from January of 2012. At the Tower of Babel, God used different languages to divide people. On the day of Pentecost, God used different languages to bring people together. You know what? I actually still appreciate that one for the literary symmetry. I don't believe those stories are true. I don't believe the Tower of Babel on the day of Pentecost actually happened, but I can still appreciate the poetry. This one's from February of 2012. Scrolling through the pictures on an atheist propaganda Facebook page out of morbid curiosity was really not a good idea, because it made me kind of depressed. Here's the thing, I actually remember that night, and I remember that the reason it made me depressed was because I came across a lot of really good arguments that I didn't have an answer for. This one's from April of 2012. My youth minister says that caffeine is Christian crack. I wonder if my youth minister realized how close to Mormonism he was on that one. This one's from May of 2012. God's Not Dead is by far my favorite of all the songs currently on Air 1 and K-Love. Okay, Air 1 and K-Love were the Christian radio stations that were really popular among mainstream evangelicals. Everybody listened to them. This song, God's Not Dead, by the Newsboys, actually preceded the really cringy God's Not Dead films. They actually used the song at the end of the movie, at the end of the first movie. I haven't seen it. I've seen a couple of reviews of it. I know how fucking awful it is, and I also know that my parents absolutely love it. I'm planning to watch it eventually just so I can roast the absolute fuck out of it. This one's also from September of 2012. God can hear you over the sound of how awesome he is. You might remember this meme that went around the internet that was like, I'm sorry, I can't hear you over the sound of how awesome I am. So I decided to co-opt that and make it about God. This goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where Christians steal all the best stuff from secular people. This is another example of that. This one's from November of 2012, right before Thanksgiving. Around the month of November, some people start doing this thing where every day they'll post like one thing they're thankful for. And so I decided that I had to upstage that and be even more self-righteous than those people, so here's what I said. So everyone's been doing these daily thankful posts all month long, and that's great and all, but I think it's kind of tragic that November seems to be the only time of the year that most people stop and consciously think about what they're thankful for. We ought to have that attitude all year round. So I'm going to make an effort to post something I'm thankful for every day for the next year, starting today. I kept that up for about a month. Here's some of my cringy thankful posts that followed. Today I'm thankful that we set up all of our Christmas decorations tonight. More specifically, I'm thankful that we live in a country where we can freely celebrate the birth, life, death, and resurrection of Jesus without fear of persecution. Yeah, that's because this country is like 70% Christian and we're not persecuted at all here. So I actually hit on some truth there without meaning to. This one's from December of 2012. Another one of my cringy thankful posts. Today I'm thankful for the unconditional, sacrificial love that Jesus demonstrated when he died on the cross. If ever someone makes you feel worthless, just remember that you're worth it to Jesus. His authority is higher than any power on earth. If he says you're worth it, no human being can do anything to make it untrue. That sounds great and all. The context behind this was that I'd just been talking to one of my friends, and she was telling me that some stuff that had gone down with her and an ex had made her feel really worthless, and I wanted to try and encourage her. And I didn't know the words to say, because when you grow up in church, they don't teach you how to encourage anyone without bringing Jesus into it. So this was the only thing I could think of to say, so this is what I said. The intention behind it was good. I just wish I hadn't been so goddamn overly zealous about it. I just wish I had known a better way to comfort my friend. Here's another cringy thankful post from December of 2012. I'm thankful for the artistic talent God has gifted me with. I like being able to use it to make my friends smile. I do like drawing pictures for my friends based on like inside jokes and things that we've come up with just because it is fun and I do enjoy making them happy, but it has nothing to do with God. There was this period of a couple years where every time I posted a new drawing on DeviantArt, I would include this line in the description that said, all the credit for my artistic talent goes to God. And it was just, I went back through my DeviantArt recently, just like last week, I think, and went through every single drawing and deleted that line from the description because I was tired of having it on there. Here's another thankful post from December of 2012. You know how people sometimes have unspoken prayer requests? Well, today I have an unspoken thankful post. Just know that it's a pretty big one. Okay, you know what? It's been like 7 years and I don't think anybody that I know is going to come across this channel because I haven't promoted it on any of my social media. So I can actually tell this story. I was with my friend Brittany. We were driving back to Louisiana from her apartment in Texas, and we're on the interstate between Arlington and Fort Worth, and Brittany swerves to avoid a piece of plywood in the middle of the road, and we spin out. Like, she loses control of the car, and we literally spun a full 360 and came to a stop. And there was no traffic around. There was like one car that was approaching from behind, but they were far enough back that they were able to get around us easily. And we were fine. The car was fine. We were okay. We didn't flip into the median. We didn't crash into anyone, we didn't get hit by another car, we were fine. And we were pretty shaken up about it, but we were fine. And so for the rest of the day, we were just kind of talking about it like we basically agreed that it was a miracle and that God had had his hand on us and was protecting us. So that's what that vague-ass thankful post was about. Here's one from June of 2013 when I was helping out in Vacation Bible School. Major props to Miss Shayna for explaining why God made hell in a way that third graders can understand. Yeah, that's great. Let's teach 9-year-olds about hell, and let's teach them that if they don't witness to their friends, then it'll be their fault if their friends die and go to hell. Fuck off. Oh man, this is one of the worst ones. Buckle up, because this is a long one, and it's a real cringe fest. In Veronica Roth's breakout novel Divergent, the Dauntless faction teaches its initiates to face their fears by placing them in a simulation where they have to endure the things that scare them the most. Dauntless transfer Tris Pryor narrates her own experience in the simulation. To her, it feels like hours, like days. But when she emerges, her instructor tells her it was only 3 minutes. Maybe that's what it's like for us as believers. While we're here on Earth, amplified in the moment that it feels like an eternity. But when we get to the real eternity that's waiting for us, when this simulation that we call life is finally over, we'll realize that what felt like forever was only mere minutes compared to what lies ahead of us. Maybe that's why the Bible commands us, hundreds of times throughout the text, to not fear. Okay, the context of that post was just that I was really upset because my 2 best friends weren't friends with each other anymore. That's literally what that was about. Why was I so goddamn extra? Oh boy, here's another long one. Equally cringy. This one is from August of 2013. Sometimes when I'm writing, I feel like a mild swear word would help emphasize something a character is saying or thinking. I never do it because my conscience always pricks me. In my own life, I don't use swear words because I feel like it would be hypocritical to say that I'm a Christian and then turn around and use language that society would see as un-Christ-like. But see, here's the thing about writing. My characters aren't me. Not all of the people in my stories are saved. They're not all church-going types who make a point of being vigilant about what they say. Some of my characters are coarse, hardened by the things they've been through. And realistically, in certain situations, it would make sense for them to swear. And I'm not even talking about dropping the F-bomb every few paragraphs. Just a hell or a damn in places where it might seem to get a point across, or show how strongly they feel about something. So here's what I'd like your opinions about. As a writer who is a Christian, would it be wrong for me to occasionally have one of my characters swear? Dear past Jennifer, guess the fuck what? This one's from September of 2013. This is an interesting one because this is when I was beginning to kind of move away from posting more overtly Christian stuff on Facebook. I still fully believed in God, but at this point I was kind of starting to take issue with a lot of religious practices, a lot of the ways that the church did things and some of the things they taught. I was having issues with some of that. So I wasn't posting a lot of overtly Christian things on Facebook, and I was actually, in my own good Christian girl kind of way, I was actually rebelling a little bit. So I had started watching this show on AMC called Low Winter Sun, and so one Sunday night, like right after we got back from church, I posted this. Best thing about Sunday nights? New episodes of Low Winter Sun on AMC. And I was very deliberate in the way that I phrased that because we went to church every Sunday morning and every Sunday night. So for me to make this post about how my favorite thing about Sunday nights was watching new episodes of a TV show, that was, in a way, that was kind of rebellious. That post was from 2013, and from that point onward, I didn't really post any overtly Christian stuff on Facebook. I was kind of, like I said, I was beginning to take issue with certain religious practices. I wasn't really interested in sharing my faith on the internet that much anymore. Like I said, it took until a few years after that before I really stopped believing. It was, my deconversion happened in like 2017. But even as far back as 2013, I was already starting to kind of move away from that overt style of Christianity where you make God a part of everything that you do and say and post on the internet. That's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing me react to my cringy religious Facebook posts. I'll see you guys in the next video. In the meantime, be kind to yourselves, be kind to each other, and please remember, empathy is everything.